Chores need to be done, going about your weekly or daily routine, cleaning up, dusting. Plug your vacuum in, you turn it on, you vacuum in the rug back and forth, then all of a sudden it stops working. You flick the switch a couple of times, still nothing. So you go to your electric panel and you find one of your breakers is tripped. You reset the breaker, but it continues to trip. Today I'm going to explain how to change your circuit breaker when it is bad. I'm going to show you the tools you'll need to use for this job. I will give you safety tips when working around the electric panel and give you an understanding of how the breaker works. Point out the parts of your electric panel, and then of course remove the old breaker, reinstall the new one, put everything back together so you can finish the rest of your chores. First things we need to write down the circuit breaker information. It's going to be clearly written on the breaker. You just write that number down. Then you can go to any local hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, or Ace. It's your choice. So now we have the right new breaker. Let me talk about some of the tools you're going to need. A pair of wire cutters or strippers, flathead screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver, and of course a flashlight. Let's talk about some safety when working around the electric panel. You always want to turn the main power switch off. When working around 240 volts of electricity, you may not get a do-over, so turn it off before you start any work. Flick the main power switch, and how do you know that there is no power running to the house? Well, you'll have no lights. Now that the power is off, let's go ahead and take off the front panel. There's going to be screws that you just remove. Once the front panel is removed, you're going to notice how neat all the wires are. This is so everything is in simple, neat order and easy to work around. Looking at the main breaker, you can see where the power or electricity comes from the outside, branches down to this main breaker, and then run to the two bus lines that power the rest of the breakers in the house. Once this main panel's off, there is no power running to any of these other breakers, so they'll be safe to work around. On each side of the breakers, you have all your white wires or neutral wires, and then your ground wires. To the back of your breakers, you got your black wires, which will be your hot wires. Now that you have an understanding of your panel, the wires, and where everything is, we're going to go ahead and remove the bad breaker. To remove a breaker, you start at the front or the center of the breaker panel and you just pull up. It's real simple. Then the breaker unhooks from the back and then comes loose. Once the breaker's loose, you're going to remove this screw on the back. You'll loosen that up and then you're going to pull the black wire out. Once that black wire is out, you're going to look at the wire just to make sure that the end can still be put back into the new breaker. If you just wiggle it and say it breaks like this one, what you're going to do is take your wire cutters, just cut that little end off, and then you're going to re-strip the wire about a 1/2 inch. With the wire stripped, you'll take your new breaker and push the black wire into the back of the new breaker. Once that wire is in there, you're going to tighten it. Don't over tighten it, because if you do, you can crack your breaker and then that can cause a short to the rest of your panel and could cause a fire. Once the new breaker is ready to be installed, you're going to hook it from the back end and then just push it back in. then your panel should be good. Now that you have the new breaker installed, you're going to reverse your steps and place your panel cover back on your breaker box, still leaving the power off. You'll replace the screws that hold the front panel on. And then tighten them up. Now with everything back in place, you can go ahead and turn your main power back on, and your breaker shouldn't trip. You go back upstairs, turn your vacuum on. If the breaker don't trip, you're good to go. You're back doing your chores. Learning how to change the breaker, as you see, is pretty simple, and knowing how to do this will save you money. Today I have explained how to change a circuit breaker when it is bad. I showed you the tools you'll need to do this job. I have given you safety tips when working around the electric panel, and you have a pretty good understanding of how the breaker box works. You have seen the parts of the electric panel. We removed the old breaker and reinstalled the new one, and then put everything back together. So if you need something to do with that extra money you saved, I do accept tips. Thank you.